Going over the border into Canada is really simple, right?
Yes, it is.
Well, here's a few things to make your voyage across the border a little easier. Let's go down that road. Hello, faithful people. I'm Orlene.
I'm Gary.
And we recently went across the border from the United States, Washington State, to British Columbia, Canada, where our daughter and son-in-law and 2 grandchildren live. This video is not about the things we did there. We'll show you highlights of that in another video. But this one is about the things that we did before we went into Canada and some tips of what we did while we were in Canada to make things a little smoother. Out of respect for our daughter and her family, they have requested that we do not use their names or show them in any of our videos. And with social media being what it is now, I don't think that's such a bad idea. So unfortunately, you won't be able to meet them, but do know that our grandkids are absolutely adorable. The first thing that we did before we went into Canada was we bought health insurance.
You never know what's going to happen when you cross the border. And even though Canadians have free health care, when you are a visitor from the US to Canada, that doesn't happen. So you have to take care of it ahead of time.
And your current insurance will not cover you in a foreign country. You can look into that on your policy, but chances are it doesn't. So it didn't cost a lot, but we gave them the dates of when we would be there. We gave them 12 days, and it cost about $114 Canadian, which converts to about roughly $83 American for the 12 days, and peace of mind. Another thing that we did before we crossed was we contacted our credit card companies. You want to let them know, and we learned that the hard way with one of our credit cards a few years ago, that we couldn't use that credit card while we were in Canada because we were traveling there and they didn't know that we were, so they just thought it might be something fraudulent. So there's a little word of advice for that.
You'd also want to check on your debit cards and let your bank know as well, so you've got all your bases covered.
Good idea. The third thing we did before we crossed into Canada was Gary set up a Google phone number.
Which is a good idea, to have a way for people to contact you by texting or by calling whenever we were close to Wi-Fi.
Yes, you have to have Wi-Fi to use it. It made it really nice that we could call our daughter in Canada while we were there, as long as we were at the campground or someplace where there was Wi-Fi. So that was nice, being able to communicate with them each day too, as to what our plans were going to be each day. You can also use Facebook Messenger to text with people and communicate with people that way too, and email, as long as you have Wi-Fi and you're using your phone. If you're using your phone to do regular texting, you will be charged for that, and if you use it to make any phone calls, you will be charged for that as well, unless you have an international plan, which we don't have. Just before we got to the border crossing, we put our phones on airplane mode and kept them on airplane mode for the entire time we were in Canada. Another thing we did when we had Wi-Fi, and we could do this before we went in or while we were there, is we would download maps of where we were going to go each day on our phones, and then they would be available without having to be online. We could still access those maps, and that was really important because there were times when we were following our son-in-law and we would get behind red lights and he would keep going and we'd get separated, and I mean, it happens, right, when you're trying to follow somebody, especially in a big city. So that was very helpful to have those maps on hand. It does not navigate you, it just shows you where you are, and you can expand it and you can see the area, and that was really helpful.
Another thing that we did ahead of time was to make sure we had a place to stay when we got there. The area they live in, and pretty much all of the Vancouver area, is very difficult to find parking, even for a car. And of course we're dragging a trailer along behind our home along behind us. So it makes it even more difficult to find a place to park, even more challenging to find a place to stay. So we made plans as soon as it was possible to get reservations at the campground we stayed at because they also book up very early.
Mm-hmm. I think we made the reservations, the first we could make any reservations like the first part of March, and we didn't get there until the middle of May, but as soon as we could make them, we did, and we're really glad we did.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the exchange rate. We always use a credit card while we're there because if we use American cash, we're going to lose money because things cost more in Canada than it does in America. So, for instance, we go to the grocery store. If we use our credit card, instead of paying $80 for the groceries, which would be Canadian, we're paying maybe $65.
Probably about that.
In American, so roughly around there. So that's a really good thing to know. Just take your credit cards and use those and then pay them off right away. Or you can, at the border, you can get currency in exchange, Canadian currency in exchange for American money.
So if you use the American money in Canada, they'd gladly accept it, but they're not going to give you credit for the exchange rate, which means you spend more money than you need to.
Right. Some credit card companies or debit cards may have a small conversion charge on them, but you're still going to come out way farther ahead by using your cards versus your American money. All right, this is the big one. Customs. If you are going to be taking something into Canada that you're going to be leaving there, like we did with our daughter, you need to know the dollar value of those items. And you need to declare it at the border.
Whether they ask you for it or not, you are obliged to declare.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is that we found out that recently, even though it says on the website, it says nothing on the website about canned vegetables and fruits, we've heard that some guards may be tossing those things if they inspect your vehicle. So to be on the safe side, we left all our canned vegetables, and I don't think we had any fruit, but all our canned vegetables, and no fresh fruits or vegetables are allowed. So eat them up before you cross. Frozen vegetables are okay, I guess. I don't know why. If they're in a commercially packaged package and they have not been opened. But if they've been opened and you've got them with a twisty tie on them, you'll have to eat them up or toss them before you go into Canada, or have somebody store them for you.
It's always good to check the lists that they have available online ahead of time, just to make sure there aren't any new changes to prepare for.
Mm-hmm. There's the obvious ones. They're going to ask you if you have any weapons or drugs and things like that. They may ask you those things, although this last time when we crossed, as you will see in the video, they didn't ask us. I suppose because we've been over the border several times and maybe we're on record for being good people. I don't know.
I'm sure. For
not being naughty. And then there's other things like certain vegetation cannot go in, so we couldn't take our house plant in. I was a little concerned about leaving that for 12 days. I guess it ended up being 11 days. Fortunately, they're both succulents, and I just watered them before we left, and when we got back, they were totally fine. We left them at the church in Mount Vernon just before we crossed the border, and the plant was fine when we got back.
They did a wonderful job. Thank you.
And they kept our canned goods and our deck. We have a pallet deck, and if I find the video for that, I'll put the link up above. But we couldn't take that in either because pallet boards were not allowed, as well as any wood that has bark on it or possible insects and things like that.
Or untreated, unfinished, untreated wood.
Yeah. So there were so many things. It was like, oh my gosh, we got this. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do with that? So it was really nice to have a place to leave that stuff and just know that it was in a safe place while we were gone. And the last thing we want you to know is that you should probably fill up with gas before you cross the border. If you're there for a length of time, of course, you'll be getting gas while you're there. And when you see the sign that says $1.50 per liter, you think, wow, that's really cheap. A liter, 4 liters is almost equal to our gallon.
A little more than a gallon.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you are getting 4 liters of gas in Canada, it may end up costing you about $6 a gallon, a US gallon. So just know that ahead of time. The gas stations in Blaine were very, very popular.
Yes.
We have a few highlights that we're going to share with you in another video because we knew this one was going to get long. But in this video, you're also going to see what our campsite was like and what it means to have a full hookup, which we very seldom do. But there was a reason that we ended up with that. So make sure you watch that all the way to the end. And what it was like coming back into the United States after being in Canada. So watch all the way to the end. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and ring the bell next to it, because if you do that, you'll be notified every time new videos come up. I think we've only used the Peace Arch border crossing once. Otherwise, we always come to the truck one. The trucks go off to the right, cars go straight ahead, and it's just always been a much quicker and smoother border crossing for us. And look at this long line we have to deal with. We timed it so good, yay!
Kind of a first.
Oh, spoke too soon. Not too bad, though. Not too bad. I don't know why the signs do that, why they flicker like that in a video, but because they're not flickering when we're looking at them right now. But the digital signs always do that. Isn't that weird?
It is.
Well, that was pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw how many cars were in front of us, and it was like zip, zip, zip. They just kind of, they look at your passport. They didn't even ask us if we had fresh fruits and vegetables.
However.
I know, the one time you don't get rid of them, they're going to ask. And the other thing they didn't ask us about was, gosh, firearms or drugs or any of those things that they normally do. He said, what are you here for? We said, we're here to see our daughter and family and grandkids. And he said, how long are you going to be here? And we told him. That was it. And then he just punched in a bunch of numbers. I said, we've got some stuff that's going to be staying here. Do you want to know about that? Those are things that are that you declare. And he didn't really seem real interested in it. I told him, but I don't think he was listening. So, I don't know. We've heard that they can be very, very strict at times, and I guess today we have such honest faces. And you have to take your sunglasses off when you go through. So, that was it. Now we are in Canada. Wonder where we are.
Someplace north.
This is Fort Langley. It's a very historic little community near Langley. Fort Langley is the birthplace of British Columbia. There's signs up all over for that. We're crossing the Fraser River. I don't know if there's a better view of it over here. We'll show you other views of it while we're here. It's been 10 days and it's been great being with family and everything, but it is time to leave. I wanted to quick show you a little bit about our campsite. We had what they call full hookup. So what that means is you've got water. This is our water filter. Highly recommend getting water filters. This hose is used only for fresh water tank.
And we had electric, which was 30 amp. You could also have a 15 amp, I guess, up there. 15 amp is house current, if that's what you wanted. 30 amp is when you can start using air conditioning and things like that. And microwave, okay, which we don't use either one, or we haven't anyway. It also means that you have a sewer. So this hose goes down into a sewer tank, which we do not leave those levers open the whole time. You can release it as you want to. You don't have to keep them open all the time. Some people do, but there can be some funky odors coming up from there. So we just dump it as we need it, and that's been really nice having that. So we didn't have to worry about emptying tanks. Okay, so Gary's going to empty it for the last time. Always does the black tank first, which is your toilet tank. How many times did we empty while we were here in the 10 days? Twice?
Shortly after we got here, and now this.
Yeah. So, and we've taken showers, not every day, but we've taken showers and stuff too. Right across from us are the shower rooms. That's an activity center, and they have bathrooms, very nice bathrooms here. But we never needed them. I mean, we had our shower, we had everything here, we had full hookup. We didn't need them. But it was nice for for if we had company coming, which we did. Our family came out here a couple times, and they could use that if they wanted to. Our grandson preferred our bathroom. If I sound a little stuffed up, I'm getting over a cold. I had a cold for about 3 days while we were here. It was a real bummer. And then this was connected to the city water connection. So this is what we had hooked up the time we were here. Gary filled up this, which is our freshwater tank, our potable water, and he filled that up now so that that's all ready to go. We had neighbors from different countries here. We didn't get to meet a lot of them because we were always going to see our daughter, but we had right here in the spot next to us, people from Germany. We had a young family with 3 small children. Over there was a couple from the Netherlands, and then they were replaced with somebody with a really neat little, like a fiberglass. It was called an Escape, and it was a little 5th wheel. I'll show you a picture of it. It was the coolest little thing, and Gary got to talk to them. I did not get to see them or meet them, and he even got a tour. Did he film it? No. But anyway, that was a very intriguing thing, and we'll have to check those out another time for ourselves, possibly. This is the rest of the campground. Oh, there's a whole another section over there. You can see some RVs too. And over there. And there's a playground over there that was great for our little ones. And then there's more campground beyond all of that. And you had to be 22 feet or shorter to have just an electric and water site. That's why we ended up with a pull-through full hookup, because we're 26 feet. Don't know if we've ever explained this before, but these were leveling blocks. Some people maybe don't know what those are. Leveling blocks, we only needed them on the one side. Keeps everything nice and even. And you don't feel like you're living in a tilted house when you're inside it. It's also very important for the refrigerator to keep fluid levels and everything. It needs to be pretty level. Got to take our welcome sign down. Doing one more check. And the kitchen vent is open. wasn't the best. We left on a Friday evening. Not good. But it was so hard to say goodbye.
So the timing was good for saying goodbye. It just wasn't good for the border.
No. So we're going through about 6:30 p.m. on a Friday night when a lot of people from Canada are maybe heading into the States for the weekend, or people are returning. Some people work in Canada and live in the States and vice versa. And anyway, not a good time. We were with our kids and grandkids for 10 days, actually 11, because we checked out of the campground this morning and then we found a place to park. It was a ways away from their house and it was a little bit of a hike, but we found a place where we could park for most of the day and then spend more time with the kids. So that was good. We didn't do a lot of sightseeing while we were here. In fact, we really didn't do any sightseeing. That's not why we came. We've been to Vancouver before. I can put links up above to show you some of the things we've seen before when we've been here. This time it was just trying to soak up as much time with the grandkids as we could. Didn't get to talk with our daughter and son-in-law a whole lot without interruptions. So that made it a little challenging at times, but it was all good. And so we will just show you little bits and pieces of some of the things we did. That is a very funny sign when you're only going, what? 0 miles an hour most of the time. And then we go maybe another, maybe 5-6 feet. And then you stop again. Oh gosh. That's the Canada side where we came through. And the US side, well, we have a ways to go yet. Well, that only took an hour and 45 minutes.
Seems like 60 minutes.
Yeah, but we had a really funny guard, and he saw our Wisconsin plates, and he said, "Are you from Kenosha?" Kenosha is a town on the Great Lakes, on Lake Michigan.
East. Yeah.
Southeast of what?
Wisconsin. Southeast Wisconsin.
In southeast Wisconsin, yeah. So anyway, so he must know somebody from Kenosha. And he found out that we were retired, that we'd been to see the grandkids, and he thought it was just awesome that our house was behind us, and he wanted to know what industry Gary and I retired from. And when Gary said he was a retired Lutheran pastor, he said, and he shook our hands, both our hands, and he said, "I'm saved by God's grace." I was like, yes, that's cool. So anyway, that was our experience going through the border. I recommend you do not go through on a Friday afternoon or evening. So anyway, no, okay, right, yeah.
Me too.
All right. And we gave them 12 dates. We contacted and just before we crossed the border, or got to the border crossing, I wasn't looking at
The area they live in. What? Go ahead.
Right now, we should check that out. Some credit cards or debit, I'm not looking at it. Ours did not.
Yes, it did.
We left, although,
Well, some people have drugs. You know.
I know, no.
which was kind of a surprise. I suppose because we, so, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. All right, where we were staying, and we left them at the church up into the border, just before we crossed. If you haven't seen that video, I'll try to find out which one it was. And